I think we're all here, so can we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to the Westwood Planning Board meeting. All of our meetings are video recorded by Westwood Media Center in the back there. If anyone else wishes to record the meeting, please identify yourself so that the other people in the audience are aware. As a friendly reminder, please turn off your cell phone ringers. The meeting will be civil and all people will be treated respectfully. This includes no clapping, booing, or interruptions from the audience. In the event of a disruption, the chair will give a warning the first time, and if it occurs again, the individual will be ordered to leave the meeting. The format of the meeting will be that when an item is called, the applicant will come forward to the podium to present their application to the board. The board will proceed to staff comments. Board members will ask questions of the applicant. For public hearing items, the public will be given an opportunity to comment. For items that are not requiring a public hearing, the opportunity for public comment will be at the discretion of the board. When it's time for public comment period, the chair will call those wishing to speak to the podium to use the microphone. And once at the podium, please identify yourself by stating your name and address for the record. Please direct all comments and questions through the chair. All people will be given the opportunity to speak, but in the interest of time and fairness, repetitive or off-topic comments may be cut short. So we have a relatively short agenda tonight. We did have an administrative thing that I'd like to consider addressing first, which is just continuing some things from the last meeting. So if people are amenable to that, I would like to go to that item before we go to the first item on the agenda.
Which is?
Which item is that?
So the item number 3, to prepare for the March 25th Finance and Warrant Commission meeting and annual town meeting. This is to affirm the motion that was made on March 12th relative to the medical use warrant article. So at our last meeting, which was a long meeting, but ultimately very productive, we came to a consensus on the wording on what to do with this town meeting article related to medical uses. And I think that the board was clear in its consensus of a desire to take out the issue of substance abuse treatment facilities from the definitions that were in that article. And so after a lot of discussion there, we formulated what we wanted to do with that. And Abby has been reviewing the video and has put together the actual wording of that and sent that out to everyone ahead of time. But I think there was we weren't completely in agreement with the wording of that. So she has tried to capture a couple of options here. And what I wanted to do first was to address this to see if you make sure that we have the right wording for what goes to FinCom. If there's a need to substitute or change the wording, not to change any of the content, not to change like the substance of it, but to change the wording to conform to exactly what we did decide at the last meeting.
Right, it was about the definitions. At your last meeting, your vote did not include the motion to revise the definitions for medical center or office healthcare professional. I submitted the report to the FinCom the exact way that you voted. You all, Brian made a motion that was seconded and that you all supported, sending a motion to the FinCom that included changing the naming of office of a dentist or a doctor to office of a healthcare professional, and including the medical center or clinic into the table of uses for the industrial zone only. And that was clarified after you made the motion, and that's what you brought forward. So that motion was submitted to FinCom the following day. After that, a couple of the planning board members were confused about what you voted for. So this is back on the agenda so you can revisit. I have drafted 2 motions. The first one is what I think some of you had talked about earlier in the evening, about revising the definition for medical center or clinic to include language that reads, is not a hospital or substance rehabilitation or treatment facility, and office of a healthcare professional, by adding additional language for hospitals or substance rehabilitation or treatment facilities. That's your option 1 in your motion. Option 2 is what you voted on last week that did not include revisions to the definition section. And then in the 3 in the back is what the existing definitions are today.
So I think,
Yeah, I think the, adding the language in to make it more clear, to make it more explicit that our intent is to not have those types of facilities within either the medical center or the office of healthcare professional. Just making it more clear. I don't think it hurts to have it there.
I think it protects the town right now, and then between now and fall town meeting, we can really, figure out what zone it should go into and give us some time to really contemplate what we can do. But we need to protect the town, and I think by putting it in both does that. And that was agreed upon by 3 of us that evening before it was voted, and even Dan Bailey had said that it would make sense to put it in there.
Right,
Yeah,
but
so
your
it's-
motion did not clearly state that, so your motions need to be more clear. If you have confusion, you should redo the motion.
Yeah, for now on, definitely the motions will be read through.
and I
word
think
for
we
word
were,
up on the screen.
as it
yeah.
was getting late, and we were kind of, I think, we were happy to have reached a consensus also, and then we were trying to make sure we captured that. And I do recall at one point that we did emphasize these definitions excluded. And I mean, I look back and I say the current definitions excluded, but whatever, the definitions exclude substance rehab or treatment facility. And so just capturing that in this is what we were trying to do, so. I don't think it makes,
But I remember Abby saying it would not be advisable to include new language or new definitions without addressing those things that we're bringing up with new definitions. So by altering all Office of a Healthcare Professional to include or exclude hospitals or substance rehabilitation treatment centers, by changing that language without addressing those issues as in the by-use chart is not, it's not advisable to introduce those new definitions without identifying where can we put these things then. That's what I remember Abby's recommendation. And
If
that's
I-
why I was thinking the old language with addressing the by-use chart is the way we should go. And that's why I was voting what I thought was with the old definition, because I understood Abby's recommendation was, don't bring up a new definition unless you're going to address all the by-use, all the issues in the by-use chart. And we were taking away the hospital and rehab center. That's why I voted.
We asked the attorney a lot of questions that night, and that actually came up. And if we need to go back and revisit that, we can. But he specifically said he didn't have a problem with having it in there. Without it
Dan,
being
do you have
revised.
something to add to
Yes, we
this?
I'm not sure that's how I remember it.
Well, Dan's right here, so.
I know.
Sorry, I didn't see you there.
if you can
I reviewed.
identify,
Dan
which-
Bailey, interim town council. I did review the tape, okay, and I can understand why there's confusion, because Brian did make a motion, and the motion was something like consistent with what we've discussed, and, shame on me, I should have made you read the whole thing. But just before that, you're absolutely right, Chris, you had talked about taking that language out. So personally, I thought that was the motion on the floor, was to take that language out, out of the Office of Healthcare Professional. So what I had for what the motion was, and you can obviously revisit it. Number one, very clear, take medical center out of the industrial office zone, okay? Amend the office of doctor of dentist to office of healthcare professional. And then, but excluding, taking out that hospital, substance rehab, or treatment facility, and then leave the definition of medical center or clinic alone. And what that does is you have a situation where you've got medical centers are defined to exclude substance rehab and treatment facilities. Then you've got an office of healthcare professional defined to exclude medical centers. So I know it's kind of a double step and it's complicated and it's what we're taught in law school to never do, but it's the way that bylaws and regulations frequently get written. You effectively have language here that, in a subtle way, which is certainly the way I prefer it, addresses the whole question of substance rehab or treatment facilities.
Does it decrease, so by adding this, so the medical center or clinic definition, the existing definition does not include substance rehab or overnight care facilities. It's changed to be, is not a hospital or substance rehab or treatment facility. Does that make a significant difference?
No.
Does it protect the town more either way, or?
I don't think it matters.
When we last spoke, though, didn't you say that leaving it out of healthcare professional could leave the town that's zoned in those areas to be a little bit more susceptible? That was the takeaway I got from it.
If it's not allowed someplace, then we're more susceptible. Yep.
So, it just makes sense to leave it in to keep us safe until we can hash this out until November, or even call a special town meeting.
Well, let me take it a step further. If you include it, if you include the Office of Healthcare Professional, which will be allowed only by, a medical clinic will be allowed only by special permit, only in the industrial district. So if somebody reads the definition of medical clinic and says, substance abuse facility isn't allowed in that, under that use. Okay, so it's not allowed in industrial. Then you read Office of Healthcare Professional. And if it says no substance rehab, well, where can you do an Office of Healthcare Professional? Well, you can do it a lot of different places. Pretty much all the commercial districts, it's allowed by right. But that also excludes a substance rehab or treatment facility. It's not a possibility anywhere in town. And that's where you get into some infirmity.
See, I had a number of people read this, and Abby, why don't you put that up on the page, since we're talking about it?
This one,
The very last paragraph on the last page.
the existing definition.
Yeah, so if we leave Office of Healthcare Professional alone, it says, comma, but excluding offices within medical centers or clinics. That's saying excluding an office within a medical center. But if you have a standalone office of a healthcare professional, you could prescribe methadone based on that definition. They're mutually exclusive.
I agree.
And I had this read by at least half a dozen people, and they are mutually exclusive. Here, Office of a Healthcare Professional, where it says, comma, but excluding offices within a medical center, that means that a single standing healthcare professional is different than what you would find in a medical center. So the question I ask myself is, what could you do in that Office of Healthcare Professional? Can you do outpatient, could you do outpatient plastic surgery? And the answer is yes. Could you treat drug addiction there? And the answer is yes. Can you treat methadone based on that definition? And the answer is yes. They're mutually exclusive. Just because it says medical center or clinic doesn't mean that it includes that language from the top paragraph, medical center or clinic.
So why don't you do this then? Okay, I appreciate the distinction.
Yeah.
So say, but excluding medical, take out offices. So say, but excluding medical centers or clinics.
I just think if you're gonna go that far, why don't you just say it? Like, why be vague? Why not just, if you mean it, say it? Because we deal with this with other warrant articles this year where it's not clear enough, so then we have to have housekeeping changes. So if we're gonna remove a word, then why don't we just say what we mean? Then just make it vague. I think as a town, we need to protect the town. So if we want to protect it and change the language, then change the language.
Well, Brian, you're absolutely right. That makes it ironclad, under that definition.
Because that's the question I kept asking myself is, what can you do here? Can you do ophthalmological surgeries? Yes. And so I went through the whole line, and what we talked about last week, we want to be explicit. The residents are concerned about this. I want it to pass town meeting. The threshold is high at town meeting, so why not make it digestible and clear? So that's what I've been thinking about.
It sounds like was your big concern then that by being so explicit, that it can come across, it can be seen as forbidding it, and that
Yeah, it
we
is.
bear that
It
risk
is.
until we rewrite, until we.
But,
Yeah.
I think
But-
so.
I mean, this is an improvement over, however you do this, it's an improvement over what we have right now. We're trying to thread a little bit of a needle here.
Because the other risk that I don't want to have happen is I don't want this to go to town meeting, fail, and now in the uses, we don't have medical center or clinic. That's the risk that I see, is that we have the definitions, but we don't have it in the uses table. I want to see them in the uses table. I want it to pass town meeting. I want FinCom to give their stamp of approval of it. So just by adding in that explicit language, it seems like we all want it there because we're thinking that it refers to medical center, but that paragraph there right now, it makes it mutually exclusive, and it's discerning the difference between an office in a medical center and a freestanding doctor's office. So that's why I think we should just add the words.
I agree.
Dan, this got kicked back from the AG's office the first time around for different
Procedural grounds.
procedural reasons. Town meeting it's a high threshold to pass, but it's not the last one we have to pass for this to go through. Do you see any reasons or any particular issues with this being something the state would accept from us?
It was in there when you voted on it in 2017. That wording was in under Office of Healthcare Professional.
And it passed then,
Yeah.
got through.
Well, in 2017,
Well,
Procedurally, it didn't get through,
Right.
Reviewed on its merits because of the procedural error.
but it still got voted in.
but we had, at that time, you had the definitions for hospital and substance treatment
Right,
center.
and I don't
That
think
was
we
the
can go back
difference.
for 2017, the FinCom and town meeting unanimously approved putting substance abuse rehab centers in the ARO district. So we're not there.
So, either we put it in or we don't. That has to be the choice. Or we'll be here all night.
I guess what I'm asking is, while I want this to pass town meeting, I want to make sure that it doesn't get kicked back to us again. And I know Abby's proposal was, or her recommendation was, if you're not going to address the use chart for these two things, the hospital or substance rehab, don't introduce it in new language in the definition. And I want to make sure we're doing things in a way that's going to allow this to become a bylaw.
I think it's consistent with what I said last time. If you want to be sure this isn't going to get kicked back, you need to make this a special permit use someplace.
The rehab facility and
Yes.
hospital.
Rehab facility.
Right.
I'm not
So we're-
nearly as concerned about hospitals.
Right.
Okay, any other thoughts or, so we have this side of the page with these changes.
Option one.
Option one, and option two is this side. And I would just say that I've shared the concerns about getting it past the Attorney General's office, but I don't know that the differences between the two sides of this paper are, I think, less significant than other, whatever else there could be. You know, like I could see that Abby put together a good recommendation. There's concern that we want to be more explicit about these uses, that will help. Advice from council is that I think we can do it if we want to, so.
And it was also determined that there was some reading, so the feeling that the reference to medical center and office of healthcare professional, that link to the substance rehab and the definition of medical center, that doesn't apply for a freestanding office of healthcare professional. So essentially, all of the non-residential areas, you could have a methadone office in any of those areas based on this definition.
But understanding what you're saying, that's saying if it's done under the guise of the Office of a Healthcare Professional. Right now, if someone wanted to come in and open up a rehab facility, it could be done so anywhere in town, except in the industrial district, because we have negated that opportunity by our medical center definition, which prohibits that. But if someone wants to come in and not do it under the radar of the medical office, healthcare professional, then they could put it in your next door neighbor's house. Because we have not identified a location for that to go into.
Yeah, I agree.
And point of fact, had we actually added the industrial office to the medical center, then that would also be a zone where a rehab facility on its own could not have been placed, because we said so in the medical center or clinic definition. But we took that out at the suggestion of the room, or the climate of the room. We took it out so we could move on. But now, as it sits, as I understand it, industrial is the only place a rehab facility cannot be placed in our town, as it sits. Is that an accurate understanding, Mr. Bailey?
I'd say that it probably couldn't go in any of the single residence districts because it's the Office of Healthcare Professionals expressly excluded there.
No, I'm saying as a rehab facility, if they don't try to do it as Brian mentioned, as a single healthcare professional who tries to help his patients as just a doctor, if they
Yeah.
came in as a full-blown rehab facility,
Yeah.
we couldn't deny that anywhere in town except for industrial, because we've denied it under
see that.
medical.
No, I don't see that
at
either.
all. How do you see that? I don't.
So we can allow it anywhere, including industrial?
No, you're precluded in industrial because of the definition of medical
Of medical center.
Yeah. There's a stronger argument that you could preclude it in residence on the basis that it's similar to an office of, if you don't have that exclusion for substance abuse facility under Office of Healthcare Professional, I would argue that it can't go in residence because it's akin to an office of a healthcare professional. But the real challenge here is that we're trying to do something without using the effective tool, which is to make it a special permit use someplace. So unless we've got that, we've got some exposure everywhere.
And we have that regardless, whether this option one or option two. But what I think we need to do tonight is to protect the town from, to be explicit with this option one, where we state for both medical center or clinic and office of a healthcare professional to include the language to exclude substance rehab or treatment facility. So what do we need to do tonight? Is it a motion?
You
Is
should-
it
yeah.
a move to recommend? What
You
is-
should
what do
make
we
a
do?
new motion and vote.
If I may, Dan, I've heard a lot from you, and I appreciate all of that insight. And you've kind of acknowledged there's a case on both sides. If I could put you on the spot and ask you what your recommendation is, to be clear, unlike the other night where none of us were clear as to what was being discussed. And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I think
Goes
we're
with
at
the
that point.
territory, Chris.
I think that's where we are right now. I'd like to know your legal advice on this matter.
It's actually none of the above, okay? I don't like, Brian, I don't think we'd lose the case, but I can't guarantee you we'd win it unless we've got an exclusion for substance abuse facilities there. And we're carrying it as allowed in certain districts, okay? That makes me uncomfortable.
And where do you see it as being allowed? Be more explicit.
The Office of Healthcare Professionals
The
is,
current language or
Yeah.
the modified?
I mean, if you put the modified language in,
So why don't we put the current one up so that we can all follow what you're saying? So continue, please. Yeah.
sure. Offices of Healthcare Professionals, under that definition, would be allowed in LBA, LBB, HB, IO, and AO.
Everywhere.
Okay, so all the, pretty
Residents.
much all the business districts. Could someone make an argument that it doesn't include, it's offices within medical centers or clinics? They could. I
That's-
think we win, but like I
was-
said, I'm not
I
going
mean,
to.
that was my
I'm not going to
interpretation.
guarantee it. You know, and if you want to be airtight on that, then I agree with you. You want to put that language in. But then the consequences of that is we have prohibited substance rehab facilities everywhere in town. Okay? So the consequences there are we are exposed everywhere. One thing I might suggest would be to consider would be to keep that definition the way it is, change it to, take out the excluding offices, but not including medical centers or clinics, because I think that's stronger language, and make everything a special permit use in the business districts, at least for now, until you get to another town meeting. That way you're regulating everything.
And can you repeat that again?
So what I'm suggesting is to change that, the last line, so with such medical office use, but excluding medical centers or clinics. So then we go up to medical centers or clinics, building designed and used for the diagnosis and treatment of human,
Oh, sorry, that meant, sorry.
human patients that does not include substance rehab or overnight care facilities. So it's, it's written out. I mean,
Does it still include the freestanding?
it's still going to have a,
Wouldn't that box us in going
it
forward?
boxes you in. It boxes
And
you in.
that's what we're trying
Every
to-
way we try and get at this, it
All
boxes
of
us
this,
in.
I think, is just reactionary planning with unintended consequences, which I'm not comfortable with in any form.
Yeah, I mean, the other suggestion would be to table this and deal with it later.
Absolutely.
When we have the spot to zone for it.
Yeah, I
That's
think
really
we're
the
putting the
decision
cart before the horse
you need to
without
make.
finding a zone first and then moving forward with the rest of this.
And that's what it feels like to me. The risk is, the elephant in the room is the failure to designate a place for a substance abuse rehab center. And we're
Right.
trying to tweak the wording, but that initial failure is 90% of the problem. And then, maybe this gets us, one version is 5% better and the other is 4% better. That's kind of how I feel, but.
We're also trying to do it in a context, that is always challenging, which is you're under the gun. And I didn't know anything about this till a week ago.
Right. We're under the gun, but that's just gonna lead to more mistakes, in my opinion. I think we should step back, take a deep breath, find out where the zones are gonna be, and then move forward on all of this.
Let me just ask a procedural question. So we had a public hearing which ended at that meeting. We are now deliberating. There's not a public hearing on this issue, but you're our staff essentially for this purpose.
Mhm.
So we're, in terms of making changes, as long as we don't bring in additional information, we're
Yeah, you're okay. It's public, I mean, the public hearing's closed, so you can't take any public comment, but you can certainly take comment from anybody that you employ, many town staff members. You can make changes as long as they're within the scope of the original article.
All right.
So are you saying withdraw the full article? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that's one of your options.
But is that what you just recommended beyond the?
I'm not gonna, I'll make
Here, I know,
recommendations
I know, I'm
on
just
legal
trying to-
stuff.
I'm trying to more clearly read between the lines.
I mean, that's a policy question. That's your call. You know,
All right, here we are again. We're back to the, the initial question was whether to continue with this article or not.
I'd like to make a motion to withdraw this article.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of withdrawing the article entirely, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Okay, so we'll ask the selectmen to withdraw the article. Is that the procedural thing we do here? Abby?
Yes.
Notify
I mean,
Finn.
you'd already submitted a report, but this is your updated motion to withdraw the article.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. So we had no other changes to the agenda. We will proceed to the original first item on the agenda. Thank you, gentlemen, for waiting for us. The first item on the agenda is 340 Clapper Tree Street, a limited environmental impact design review public hearing. St. Mark's Cathedral request to construct a new entrance and accessible ramp on the west side of the building.
Good evening. My name's Nick Ciaccheroni. I'm from Worcester, Mass., representing the cathedral as contractor, parishioner, all around good Samaritan to the church. 5 years ago, the church bought the former function hall of the parish across the street. Began their parish. The parish is starting to thrive. The way the building is set up, there are no accessible bathrooms on the main level of the church. There is one bathroom on that main level. The rest go downstairs to that lower level basement. And the church's altar itself faces the westerly direction, which is the other end of the main entrance of the building right now. So in all, to orient yourself, the priest's back would be at the main entrance, the existing main entrance. Given the fact that our church is growing, we would like to construct 2 accessible bathrooms on the main level, on the other side of the altar, so people aren't entering from behind the priest, and at the same time at an entrance on the other side that's handicap accessible.
So
That's-
you want to flip-flop it and add a couple bathrooms?
Exactly. I'm trying to be flowery. My dad paid a lot of money for my education. If he's watching it right now, I don't want him to fall over. But I'm a
You're
math
on-
and science
you're on
guy,
high
not an English guy.
definition,
So this is a perspective showing today.
That is a perspective showing today.
And this is
So the
what
west
this
side is
proposed.
And that would be what, right. Correct. Square footage, we're not the only square footage we're adding is about 4 square feet. The chimney is where that entrance is now anyways. We'll be taking that out. We'll just dress it up a little bit. And the rest is really function for the accessibility to meet 521 CMR.
Would you be taking out that playground and all the fencing around it, or keeping that in? That's there now.
There's no plan to take that out. A lot of our earthwork, we'll redo the walkway that goes from that lower parking lot to that side door, just to match a new walkway that goes up. If I'm gonna do the work, I might as well do it all at one time. Most of our land disturbance is really repaving that top portion that's already asphalt, and just making sure it meets grade. Now, we do want to keep the greenery that's out there.
You're flying through that, Abby. It's hard to keep up.
I'm trying to catch up myself. It's okay, though.
So this was the revised plan that you got last week?
That one was the revised one you received last week.
So there is some landscaping added?
Per the recommendations of Phil from your third-party study, we added the buffer,
Yep. and
the
4
fencing, the
trees.
dumpster was relocated to that northwesterly corner.
Right here.
Let's see, do we have any, are there any questions from?
Well, I noticed in the report, I think the lights you're talking about putting on are going to be regarded as security lights and will be on from,
So
Dusk
I've
till
given
dawn.
Abby a cut sheet of the light we'll use. It is a downlight, so it's not gonna, it won't, it literally it just shines down vertically to the ground for walkway, and they will be on a timer. So we can set the time whatever it needs be.
I thought I saw somewhere it indicated it was regarded as security. It's not? It's not to be
I
on
call
the-
lighting, walkway lighting, security lighting by the city, not burglar alarm lighting, but security as, safe passage.
But it will be turned off.
So it's not gonna,
during the
it will
night.
not be on all night long.
All right, that's it.
No.
We look at security as something different than
No, okay,
a
yeah.
secure walkway.
No, okay, no, it's not security to keep burglars, yeah.
I noticed also, so the walkway leading up to the new front door is at the same elevation as the new asphalt driveway going up. It's going to be, is that a concrete walkway or an asphalt walkway?
Concrete.
So you have a distinction of materials. The walkway will be going into
Concrete
the
to
asphalt.
asphalt, yes.
I noticed you have a bollard light on the outside.
Okay.
It seems to me that's just begging to be picked off by a snowplow or a passing motorist or somebody. It seems like a better place would be the inside of that walkway as you turn right.
No problem with that.
And then with that, I was thinking it might be, again, to make your pathway a little more secure, down where you have that Y, if you were to put another bollard there, that would really allow somebody to have a lighted walkway leading all the way up to or leaving the church and going to your parking lot. A second bollard there. It seems like that's the only place I saw a bollard light was there. If you're going to do it, it just seems, you have an issue or you're concerned with the safety of your parishioners, so I
That's
was
fine.
just thinking that carrying it out towards the driveway or the parking lot might be even better. Phil, 2 handicap spots, is that okay for the size of the building in your estimation? I don't know, are there any now? But they're not there.
They're,
They're in the front?
correct.
Or the old
And I'm not sure
front?
they're delineated as a legal handicap parking spot, but just, it's in the flat area in the front.
Okay. I like this location, obviously, how close it is to the ramp and the front door, how much closer, but I just was wondering if 2, in your estimation, was sufficient. Sorry to jump to you, but,
So I didn't review in terms of the total parking lot area, relative to the numbers of, I assume the addition was, and it, like, are you gonna maintain the ones in the front too? Or keep those?
Handicap spots, not necessarily.
Do you have 2 in the front?
There are no delineated spots in the front
Okay.
that are currently, there's one on the side of the building, I guess it's parallel to the side of the building on that driveway.
okay.
So we're doubling, in effect, we're doubling what's there.
Do you know how many parking spaces you have in the main parking space?
No.
And obviously that goes to the equation you're looking for.
Right,
Approximately 30 or 40. the rest of the dirt lot.
I would defer to you.
Yeah,
And if you need to get back to it, I guess that's fine, but that was just a thought I had. I saw two, and I just maybe wonder, is that enough? I don't know how many the building holds. I didn't know how many parking spaces there were elsewhere, so that's why I asked the question.
I think it was,
Sure, yeah, we need a microphone so they can hear you.
I have to look, but I think it was addressed in the building write-up that was given to the building department.
Okay, if I missed it,
So,
I
yeah,
apologize.
There's about 40 pages in that permit packet, so I went dizzy reading a lot of the things too.
All right, did you have anything else there? I think, Phil, did you have a report that you wanted to update us on, draw our attention to anything in particular? Or I think the stormwater stuff came up, and you had some thoughts on that.
So just for the record, Phil Paradis with Beta, acting as the town engineer. So the project is relative to impervious area. There's a slight increase in impervious area. However, the soils here are not conducive for infiltration. They're rated as D soils. So we, as we typically do in any kind of retrofit, we typically ask the applicant to recharge their roof water. This wouldn't have the benefits of that. So we kind of sidestep that. So they provided the lighting catalog cuts. So they've added some specifications on the plans for the pavement and the sidewalk. I would just have them include 12 inches of gravel for the pavement and 8 inches of gravel for the sidewalk. I don't know if you've checked the grading to see if you can make the ADA, the 5% grade for the walk.
I have not yet. Snow's finally.
Yeah. So I don't know how lengthwise. It looks like you got about 5 feet to
I
get
drove
up.
by there today. I think I can do it.
Okay.
A little bit of a curve to it, but yeah.
Okay.
I can handle it.
Yeah. So the estimate of disturbance, I don't know if you're gonna trip the 5,000 square foot requirement for administrative review
We
from,
have given that calculation to Abby.
yeah?
Right, so it was just over 5,000, so that would require filing an administrative application with the conservation agent.
Okay. And then kind of our major concern is if you flip in the building, you're also gonna flip obviously where people are. And right now, there's nothing on this backside, and I don't know how much impact that is to, this seems to be one pretty significant close resident there on that side.
On the north side.
Yes.
I did a site visit, it seemed like it was the north side, yeah. That was-
Yeah. I
And that's
included
where
a
the-
picture in my, where you can see the house pretty vividly from the,
So where to the top left of the screen from what we're looking at here.
Have you had any discussions with that homeowner?
We're not changing the way people enter the building.
No, I understand
Oh,
that. I understand. I was just curious if you had all reached out at all to your neighbor.
No, not
Okay.
yet.
Just, we found it can be very helpful to do this proactively instead of reactively. Telling them what your plans are, showing them your landscaping plans can go a long way towards making it a very smooth transition for your project. The last thing anybody wants, whether it be a home or a church, is a bad neighbor relationship. So I don't suspect they would have serious opposition, but I don't know. I'm not them. So communication is always the best way to clear that up. I'm not telling you have to. I'm just saying that's a way that has worked in the past.
okay, so I just, maybe a little clarification. So this isn't gonna be the main entrance?
It is going to be the main entrance, but.
Could we get you on the microphone there? It's kind of hard going back and forth. Maybe,
We'll do it. It's going to be the main entrance, but they currently use that side of the building to enter already through what is the kitchen door. So the traffic is already coming up that way.
The foot traffic?
The foot
or
traffic. No one enters through what you consider the current main door.
None of your parishioners?
No one does, right.
They used to, the old church.
The old, as a function hall, yeah.
Right, but for the last 5 years,
We've
you've
been
been
coming through
entering
that.
through the kitchen door?
Exactly.
Okay,
Only just to keep out of the, as he's conducting service.
okay,
You don't want to walk from behind him.
understood.
Yeah.
So, point of fact, they've been using that as the entrance for the
Okay,
last
so
5 years.
that's the side door with.
Yeah,
That goes
around
into
the
the
side,
kitchen.
yeah, not the area they're gonna alter, really.
Door?
Yeah, there's no door there now.
Yeah, it's over here that he's talking about.
It's up by that,
Let me go.
by the dumpster.
Oh, okay.
This one right here.
There's a door
So
up
walk
there.
all the way around
Yeah.
to get there? Okay.
Yeah, he has a persistent to get to church.
All right, all right. Okay. So, anyway, so we recommend they provide some screening. They did that. The only place where they don't have it is right where the two parking spaces are proposed. I wasn't clear on where the property line was. So, I mean, there is a provision in your bylaw that says you gotta have a 5-foot separation. Buffer. They are putting a fence there. Again, I don't know, the changing, if it's not really a change of the access people, and the butters aren't here, so I don't think they have a problem with it.
Phil, I have
anyway.
I have a question for you with regards to the screening. So it looks like the fence stops at the point of the cars, and then you start seeing, so essentially on the north side. So as you go from the handicap parking, continuing on up, are you okay with that type of, so the fencing stops? Is there a reason to not continue the fencing, especially considering the dumpster there? I don't know if this is enough screening.
So it doesn't look like they specified, they just said, what do they call it, new
Trees.
landscape screen. There's a couple trees and a so I assume maybe that's arborvitae or some
I
kind
think
of.
it's defined as an 4-inch trunk, 6 to 8 feet.
That was my recommendation based on the zoning. For screening, you usually use the evergreens that are densely planted.
Right.
So I had suggested they be about 6 to 8 feet on center to make sure they provide that full screen.
And then what about once we get to the dumpster, what is the screening there? So there's this, it's enclosed, but I'm just thinking for the aesthetics of the neighbor, are you,
Yeah, I mean, it's 8 foot, or is it 6 foot? 6 foot?
I think it's
6 foot.
6-foot fencing.
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
it's a
with
real
fence.
small, I don't know if you saw the,
dumpster.
it's a real small dumpster.
It's on wheels.
okay.
Yeah, it's one of
so, no, I think this would be improvement over this.
Can I ask you just a quick question? At the ramp landing, it says that the existing downspout at extension of grade to divert water. Do you think that'll be suffice to prevent that from accumulating there, any water accumulating at the ramp?
Say that again?
It says existing downspout at extension on grade to divert water from the ramp landing. So that's at the accessible ramp?
Looks like it's gonna empty out right at the bottom of the ramp.
Right.
The busy
See, I can
plan.
open it, see.
Existing downspout, is it on this plan?
I don't see the downspout, but that's the ramp landing.
Oh, yeah, it's on the revised site plan that we got.
I don't have the.
I'm just trying to figure out.
Where's it coming from, the corner, by the kitchen?
It's coming now from the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah,
Existing
right here, so this is the
Oh,
new
yes.
ramp down.
But so that's the old, and this is the new corner, right? So this would be the old overhang, the old roof?
Okay, so there's a
That's the case,
downspout
huh?
right here?
Here.
That's the new pile. How is that an
Yeah.
existing
Converting it
downspout?
this way?
Well, I think there's an overhang,
Correct.
sticks out.
On here? Okay.
All right, well, there's no grades on this plan, so it's very difficult to say.
Here's the photo.
Yeah. This ramp, is this there's not gonna be any opportunity for a
Same
flow to get out
extension.
underneath this, or is it gonna be solid?
Can't see it.
I gotta look at the grade
Take
when
a
we're out
picture
there
from
working.
Over here, but you
Okay.
see there's a,
I think we're just
Oh.
gonna have to say, provide
It's
positive
over here that
drainage
we're
at
talking.
that location.
So they didn't put it on the corner, they put it in
Um,
about 3 or 4 feet then.
well, if you
Can
go
we add that,
back, yeah.
Abby?
Yep, I'm just making a note,
It's the
so I'm adding,
existing.
Positive.
provide a, I guess, drainage outlet for the downspout at the end of the ramp. Some kind of,
Positive,
So this is the existing,
Yeah, so you don't
right
end up with
here.
an ice
It does
puddle
come-
with
It's gonna coming down this way, halfway down the end of the ramp and ending out here. But that's the existing
And Phil, did you have any other?
corner of the building, and
Nope,
this is the new stuff here.
So it's gonna be out
there
here.
one more
You
thing?
have to go into the ground and carry it somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe grab that one.
yeah,
go
they
under
take care of the dumpster.
You'll have to
so-
do a French drain or something,
Right.
because
So-
leave it right there is just
Can I
gonna be
just
a
ask
big
you one more
puddle right
question?
there.
The sidewalk, the new sidewalks are, they're gonna be 5 feet wide, is that correct? And the,
I believe that's what it calls for.
is that what it is? Okay. And the ramp width, is it
The ramp width is usually 4 to 8 inches clear rail to rail.
perfect?
It's whatever that 521 CMR calls for.
All right. Abby, do you have anything, or you go through the?
Well, I just have one more question. The existing lighting, so the, would, obviously this is a new application, but as far as the timing of the lighting, will all the exterior lighting be set to the
I'll have
same?
it, yes.
Okay.
I know there's a couple of random ones
Yeah.
throughout. Yeah, we'd have it all on one.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all.
All right, so, thank you. We have 6 requests for waivers. I think we talked about some of those, but we should
Read through them.
read through them. The exterior lighting plan, I think we touched on that, and be okay with. Is there anyone, is there anyone here who wants to, would like to comment on this application? All right.
okay, sorry. You can keep going.
Well, so in number one, I think we've spoken to the applicant, and these are not gonna be security lights, and they're gonna be at some point during the night. I.e., what time do we usually regulate?
We usually say an hour after closing.
Hour after closing?
What time is closing?
Different days and different closings.
Yeah, I get it,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Church calendar very well.
Right.
He's staring in the back of my head right now.
I'm sure he knows the schedule
He
pretty
knows the
good.
schedule.
I'd say
Yeah,
after,
and-
an hour after.
But they close at various times.
So they could turn it off.
There are some nights that we're there at midnight, and there is once a year that we're there past midnight, which is for Easter, our Greek Easter. But other than that, we're usually out at 8:30, 9 o'clock, the latest, if there's an evening service.
Is there an easy override with these for the one night a year or
Oh, yeah.
couple
no,
nights?
It's gonna be, yeah, it'll be a standard cable time with slides with it.
And then the lights that are on there currently, on that west side, so that's where you're coming out?
There
That's-
are none, I don't think, on that west side currently.
I saw a couple on the corners.
They're facing the playground,
That's right.
yeah.
And there's one.
Sir, I'm
fa-
sorry, we gotta go to the microphone.
So-
Current lights are facing the playground.
So will those, so you'll take will it be that same, that will be the same light? I'm just trying to orient myself for this,
Those lights, I'm gonna keep the same, only because they do shine on the parking lot
Yeah.
a little bit. I'm gonna upgrade them to an LED, just a newer fixture, just so it's not that ugly yellow. But they'll all be on that same timer, the
Okay.
same mechanism, so they're
and
all.
right now they're on so it'll be essentially the same direction. Yeah, so if they're going now and the neighbors are fine with them.
Correct, and I don't, keep in mind, I don't think anyone's gone up there in 20 years to adjust it either.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's kind of fallen, sagged.
Yeah,
When I'm there doing the work, we'll have it adjusted properly.
all right, thanks. I'm done.
Okay,
Let's see.
that's
The
number one.
second waiver is for traffic study, but we're not
Be
expecting
no increase.
waiver to provide a site plan that includes the full property details, including all paved areas. We have a plot plan and architectural drawings.
Yep.
Fourth waiver is a waiver from storm drainage including drainage calculations for runoff. That's what we talked about, I think, as the sixth waiver, actually, but that's,
Well, this waiver law, I mean, once it triggers the conservation agent, can we waive it?
You're waiving them submitting all the calculations to you.
But they'll still have to submit all those to the Conservation Commission.
If it's over the 5,000 square feet of disturbance, it would be administrative review
Okay.
to
Maybe
the
triggers it.
conservation agent.
Okay.
Yeah, the administrative.
Nothing's easy, Phil.
you have to hang microphones.
Administrative review, it really leaves a lot up to Karen, so it wouldn't be, detailed calculations.
Okay.
So, but in this case, again, the soils are so poor out there that, the recommendations we typically do, like providing infiltration, even put, dry wells, they're just not gonna work, because you can dig a hole and just fill it with water.
So what do you recommend as far as our actions here, waiving or not waiving?
Yeah, you can waive it. It's not, it's gonna have minimal impact.
Thank you.
Because right now, there's de-soils, it means the water's not getting into the soil anyway. So if you pave it, it's very little change, so.
Got it. Thank you.
The fifth waiver is for a presentation model. Oh, we were looking forward to having them build a model, so no, that's okay. And the sixth waiver is strict requirements, perimeter planting areas, requiring a minimum 5-foot wide planting area adjacent to the 2 accessible spaces proposed along the northerly property line. That's just the,
I believe there's one more.
And what's the reason for that request? Is it a topography
That's-
problem?
We couldn't quite tell from here to here, is that
The downspout.
Oh, no, yeah.
these parking
What's
spaces?
the waiver request
The
again?
waiver request is a waiver of requiring a minimum of 5 feet wide planting area adjacent to the 2 accessible spaces proposed along the northerly property line.
Because I am not exactly sure how much room I have from the end of that spot to the property line and allowing enough traffic to get around for the cars to be able to pull in and park. I have to be able to give them a radius.
So the-
wall is on the property line?
I cannot say for sure. I'm not.
It's
I'm,
adjacent on the northern side, isn't that?
that's what adjacent on the northern side, the left side of the paper.
So there's a fence proposed instead of the plantings.
Is that fine, Phil?
Yeah, is it
Are we going to determine where the property
Right.
line is?
Yes. Okay. No, I've had a site.
Sounds
No,
like
no.
it's just a little
I've had a
premature to
site
be
plan
waiving
done.
things we don't even sure
No,
we
I
need to
had an
waive.
engineer survey the site plan for the building department, but they're gonna come out there and snap lines for me, so I know exactly where I'm, and they're gonna snap my grades and everything else as well.
So it's possible you may not need this waiver.
Exactly.
And there's gonna be a fence there, 6-foot fence?
Yes.
That should,
Regardless if there's 5 feet enough for plantings and screening?
Regardless.
Yes, that's what you're approving on your revised site plan, that's what it
Yeah.
shows.
I'm okay with just the fence there.
Dave, there's actually one more waiver for them to waive the fee. That was
Right.
further down.
Right.
yeah, I think often we
So
have
that-
done that first. We'll add that into the 7 here unless, are there any, is anyone uncomfortable with any of these waivers?
No.
And then the additional waiver is for the application fee, so that, which we have done for other.
So we'll add that to the list there.
It's up to town staff.
Well, they
They
have
know
the
the
question here
business of the
anyways.
planning department.
So I move to approve the 7 waivers upon a finding that these items are not required for this proposed project.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the waivers are granted. And let's see, we have conditions of approval.
Should we read through each one?
Let's see, we have 9 conditions of approval. You can
Do you want me to read through each of them, Dave?
I was thinking, Abby, were you
Yeah,
gonna,
sure, we can see.
we can just read them too, so.
Yeah, why don't you just read them into the record?
Go for it.
So I'm going to read through. Abby, do you want to read them, or would you like me to?
Whichever.
Okay. All right, so the applicant shall, this is the first one, the applicant shall make the new walkway from the parking area to the new entrance ADA compliant by meeting the correct grade at no more than 5% maximum grade. Number 2, applicant is responsible for filing with the conservation agent if more than 5,000 square feet of land is distributed from a land disturbance review under the stormwater bylaw. Number 3, the proposed landscape screen shall be evergreens 8 foot in height at the time of planting and shall be approximately 6 to 8 feet on center to provide an impervious screen. The proposed trees shall be 4 inches in width at the time of planting. Number 4, the dumpster shall be located in the enclosure provided and the gate shall be closed when not in use. Number 5, the existing kitchen shall be closed during construction or approximately protected from dust and debris and inspected by the Health Division prior to use. Any alterations to the kitchen will review prior approval by the Health Division and applicant responsible for filing application. Number 6, the applicant shall install a no parking sign and/or a no parking pavement markings in front of the accessible ramp. Number 7, the applicant is responsible for applying to the Westwood Board of Health for a waste hauler permit if needed during construction. Number 8, an asbestos survey shall be constructed in compliance with DEP asbestos regulations, and application shall submit electronic copy of the survey to the building permit application. And finally, there's a number 10, but number 9 is applicant shall hire a pest control company to inspect premises prior to construction and submit inspection report to the building department and Board of Health. And number 10 was the downspout, the grading.
Right, I had a couple more, so I think I added in here. Number 10, provide, maybe you could say provide, the applicant shall provide the required number of accessible spaces, just so we can verify that amount if there's more that are needed. Number 11, update the plans to include the paving detail as requested by Phil in his memo about adding the top course and gravel base. That still needs to be on the plan, right?
The gravel for both the sidewalk and
Okay. For sidewalk and pavement. Number 12, provide the drainage outlet at the end of the ramp to capture that water in the downspout. And 13, lights set to be turned off an hour after close.
Use. So I motion to approve. Did we already get public?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. A motion to approve the limited EIDR for 340 Clapper Tree with the conditions discussed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes, and we need to close the public hearing.
A motion to close the public hearing for 340 Clapper Tree Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the public hearing is closed on that item. That's,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay.
Hope it
Okay.
goes smoothly.
Thank you.
all right, so we will move on, and just if anybody came in late, we already discussed the medical uses issue, so, okay. So these business items are, Abby, do you want to just walk us through, do we have people?
Right. The Topgolf appeal in Canton, that is not ready tonight, but I expect an agreement to be ready for your review at your next meeting in April. I thought maybe that would be ready tonight, but it's not. Your action number 3. Oh, I did.
Well, the other items at FinCom, there's no other changes, right?
Right. The
Go present the
So it's-
language on the
thanks.
parking spaces and fence height change, no other changes.
Right, so your only article to update them on from the last meeting will be this week on Monday, will be the vehicle parking in the residential area. garages.
So that FinCom meeting is Monday, 25th of March. It's not our public hearing, though. And so we will be attending to update them, but it will not be a their meeting is a public meeting and all, but it's not a public hearing on the,
It's their public hearing, it's not your public hearing. So it'll be posted as a planning board to attend the FinCom's public hearing to participate in the discussion on the warrant articles.
And that's at 7? Or 7?
It starts at 7 PM at the library.
and then we will have a public hearing, a final public hearing of our own on the town meeting warrant articles on April 23rd
On April 23rd.
at the Downey.
Yep. I expect it to be the Downey. I'll decide that when we get closer, but I expect you'll be at the Downey for the April 23rd meeting. At your last meeting, you forgot to vote to continue your public hearing. You've taken in all your information, you've made your recommendations to FinCom, but you should, we'll re-advertise so you can make your formal recommendation to town meeting. I would recommend not changing your articles once it's already gone to FinCom and once it's already been submitted to the town meeting warrant, but we will print out the proposed warrant articles exactly as you've provided them to FinCom. But we should re-advertise that public hearing on April 23rd.
And do we need to do any type of motion tonight with regards to that?
No, I don't think there's anything to do further now because we have to do the new advertisement in the newspaper, and that's, the time frame is, it's not until your end of April meeting.
So Abby, I have a process question. So why do we hold public hearings after we've already submitted the articles to FinCom?
The planning board generally keeps your public hearing open in case anything comes out of FinCom. So sometimes you've had new items or requests for changes at FinCom hearings, so they usually keep it open. Usually you don't make changes after you've made a recommendation to the Finance and Warrant Commission, but at times something new or new people are at those hearings and have asked you for changes. So usually the meeting before town meeting or right before town meeting, the planning board makes your formal recommendation to town meeting. The zoning act requires the planning board make a report directly to town meeting. So usually you do that verbally on town meeting floor and in writing that you give to the moderator at the start of town meeting.
Thank you.
And can we communicate and broadcast far and wide that the article on medical uses, although it was probably already listed on the agenda for FinCom, that we are asking that it be withdrawn, and so no one needs to discuss.
Yeah, well, tomorrow I'll submit the updated motion to the Finance and Warrant Commission staff to let them know.
What other, let's see, so that's everything related to town meeting, I think. Can I go to any other items here?
Well, next I had some review meeting procedures and best practices. I think Dave had already read at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
I had added some extra language. I know after your last meeting there were some questions on order and how to handle the meeting. So I had added some language for you to review.
Well, and I think I want to just emphasize, it's not just us, like, that's the thing. I mean, we can handle if people become upset and all, but it's the other people in the audience too, I think it can be uncomfortable for people to be in a room where they feel that there's angry people and they might not feel able to participate, and that's, it's not just about whether someone's being confrontational with the board, it's also that it creates a whole environment that's not what we want, so I will endeavor to.
Well, it's something we gotta handle early. I'm in the business of this. It happens to me all day long. And the more rope you give them, the more they're gonna take, and the worse it's gonna get. If you grab it early, set the tone, you're better off than letting it go and getting out of control.
Right, so I recommend, as Dave or the chair usually reads the procedures at the beginning of the meeting, I've added it to the back of the agendas, but from now on, we can post it at the front of the door, so people see it. And then you should, if people come in late for a public hearing on later, you should reiterate the meeting procedures, that how it'll flow, that all questions and comments should be through the chair, that the applicant will present first, the planning board will ask questions, discuss, staff may report, and then you'll open it up to public comment, so people understand that they are going to get a chance to speak. So I think you should make that clear if anyone comes in late in the meeting. And then, so the language I had added on here was about how to handle if there's disruptions. I think it should be made clear that people should be respected, so that people do feel comfortable. You and the board and anyone else in the audience, if they're wishing to speak, that they shouldn't be afraid to speak. So I think you should call order at the beginning. And so the language that I have here is, in the event of a the meeting will be civil and all people will be treated respectfully. This includes no clapping, booing, or interruptions from the audience. In the event of a disruption, the chair will give a warning the first time, and if occurs again, the individual will be ordered to leave the meeting. If you think that should be in there.
Absolutely. The problem is clapping is not an individual action. So it becomes a little vague in that sense. But again, it's meeting by meeting.
Right,
And sometimes clapping isn't all that distracting,
right.
you know? I think it comes on last week was, a little out of the ordinary, and it was an individual. They need to be dealt with.
I think the operative word here is if it becomes a distraction or disruption to the process. That's what happened to both hearings last week, is the outburst became disruptive, and it was disrespectful to the applicant of that first hearing and to the board as we were attempting to navigate through that particular hearing. So I think if in the determination of the board, or at least the chairman, that the outbursts are now disruptive, then
Right, make a
we've triggered-
declaration and go
yeah,
forward from
we've
there.
triggered that, we've crossed that threshold and will employ the tactics that you've outlined.
Yeah, and so the actual mechanism is that we would stop a meeting if we had someone, which
Right.
we didn't quite have.
But at first, from the chair, you have to make a declaration that this meeting is out of order.
You've been warned, you're out
You've
of order.
been warned, you're out of order. If you don't behave yourself, you either leave, they don't leave, we end the meeting right there until that person is removed from the premises or leaves on their own.
I've been in far more disruptive meetings
I agree.
than what happened.
I agree.
Right.
But we don't want it to happen even what happened before. So it's fine to nip it in the bud, it's fine to outline it, it's fine to have procedures. But whoever's in the chair at the gavel needs to be willing and able to
Yeah, that's-
say, all right, we've now crossed into this bad place, and we need to be able to do this. So it's just, and I guess one of the board members could be the first one, if it's better within your personality to step up. We all bear the burden of a disruptive meeting, so it's fine if anyone is willing to step in, but I think, it comes stronger from the position of the chairman.
And I think it's fine to have the language in there. It lets individuals know this is what a consequence can happen. But I agree, it's meeting by meeting varies, and there are different ways to tactfully navigate that. And I agree with you too, Mike, like you nip it in the bud early, and then people understand,
Hopefully.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so.
And you put that in the packet every week, I notice it's been there.
Yeah, I've been putting it in your
Yes,
packet,
thank you.
and then we do have it on your website, so I will update that and revise
It's
it.
nice that
and
it's there every week.
Okay, do we have any other items here? We have-
Islington Center, I believe the Blue Heart Tavern came down today. Did you see
Did.
that?
I
It
drove by it
was in the
around 6
process
o'clock.
earlier,
Is there a video
so.
of that? It's like,
No, I have not seen
wasn't
the
a
video.
news?
So to clarify, I know you talked about it a little bit at the last meeting we talked about, but there are still some questions around it. The applicant had wanted to save the Blue Hat Tavern and restore it. However, when it got to this point pretty soon, his structural engineer did look at it and had recommended it needed some structural improvements. We had someone take another look at it and agree that it needed new structural supports, and the amount of work that it would need to put into the building would make it not financially
cost prohibitive.
yes, correct. It would cost, the amount of money that would need to go into it to relocate it would actually be a complete, not even a restoration.
Let's
It was
put out the
completely,
numbers here. It was $137,000 invested in the Blue Heart Tavern. Then, with this new move, would cost $275,000. And then to restore it afterwards, and once it was in its new location, would be another $600,000. Over $1 million. And at the end of the day, it would still just be a replica of a historic building. Not a historic building. It was not worth doing. That simple.
Right.
We tried, didn't work.
So the developer is actually out
A lot of money.
$137,000 in the attempt.
To help this, yeah.
yes,
To help
yep.
us out.
And the land will divert to the towns.
Right.
I think open space there even, like I know they're gonna have plans, but I think it'll be nice to have that spot.
Yes, and so we are looking, the town is starting to design plans for relocating the library and working on developing the plans for the addition and on the back of the library to get that moving, hopefully later, by the end of the year.
Have we had a structural architect look at the library?
We are starting to do that, and we're working, on some design plans. But yeah, I believe we had an initial review done earlier. I think it was in 2017. We had a feasibility study, but that will be needed. For that move, there will need to have complete plans and permits for that, and we would want to make sure that the building is
To make it
safe
across
to move.
Washington.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
not anticipated, but it is a possibility. The report could come back negative and say this thing is not likely to last the move without significant reinvestment into it. It's always a possibility with an old building.
Yes.
And we have to make that, this is not a guarantee thing.
Right.
It was brought up at the last meeting, we were admonished for allowing the Blue Heart Tavern to fall into the state that required demolition. And it wasn't the fault of our board or anything other than time.
Right.
And that first move.
Well, that first move, I mean, that was a dicey
Yeah.
proposition in
So,
the first place.
I
The
just
fact that it
think-
made it, I was shocked.
I think everyone just needs to understand, these are old buildings and things happen sometimes.
They weren't designed to move.
But the library exists today in its space and is in use. It's not sitting in a temporary location. So
Right.
Blue Heart Tavern had been sitting in a temporary
It's in much better
location
condition.
for a while.
And it's not as old.
We own it.
To look more like,
Yeah,
We own it. It's kind of all the damage of the Blue Heart. Also, it's never been owned by the town, so, all the history of it being, sitting there, not being used, and all is, but
And one more
Alright,
thing about
next.
Islington, I just want to say, we do have building permit plans submitted to CVS. I have not signed off on them yet. I have requested an updated lighting plan, some material to check the noise compliance of the mechanicals. So I requested some more information, and then there were a couple some differences on the CVS plans. Let me just pull them up here. So I review it for the building. I review the building permit plans for consistency with your plans that you approved. The elevations, the signs are different. So one of your conditions was that they had to submit a final signage package for me to review and approve. So these are the approved plans. You can see them. So it had kind of a framed sign. And then the proposed ones show lettering, so channel letters with halo lighting. So they're individual letters. Also, the little cupola that was on top, there was a cupola on top of the CVS building that's no longer proposed.
Now, what is the lighting for those? You said halo lighting?
Halo lighting, so that's kind of behind the letters and reflects backwards onto the building.
Instead of having a flat sign, you have like the shape of the letter lit up behind it.
Yeah. I had recommended some changes to the monument sign. So that's not ready to be approved. So it's coming soon, but I've asked for some changes. I've also asked for a material sample because in some of the plans that you were approved, there it was like a grayish color, and then the artistic renderings were more of a yellow. So I've asked for a material sample so that I can review those. So
Went from gray to yellow.
in the earlier, it was in the earlier renderings, drawings. Yep. So I've asked. I think most of the plan set that you approved, the actual official elevations were that a gray color. So I will be reviewing that and asked for more information before I sign off on the building permit, but that is pending. So that is
And
expected.
they've already
next.
received the foundation permit?
I believe they
poured half of
did,
it,
yeah,
so
or they.
Got the
Yeah.
forms in.
I saw that.
There was a
I think they're
foundation
past
permit.
forms. I think they poured already.
It was around about 2/3 of the way yesterday.
Is this a 24-hour pharmacy?
No.
No.
Thank you,
What else is
Abby.
there? Okay. Comprehensive plan?
So I had a question about the acreage up behind Wegmans. I saw more activity up there today. Do you have any?
Right, they might be doing site work. We're expected at your next meeting on April 2nd to have an application for the project development review for the building on top of the hill behind Wegmans and Target.
Okay.
All right. I don't, has anyone read the minutes and ready to approve them, or should we just hold that till April 2nd? I think we'll hold that.
Anybody?
If there are no,
26th and the 4th.
our next meeting is April 2nd, but we will be attending the FinCom
Monday.
meeting on March 25th, next Monday.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Do
make a
you-
motion.
do you need more time with the minutes?
Yes.
Okay,
So make a motion to close the meeting?
adjourn.
Second?
Motion to adjourn, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is reopened for public comment.
Thank you. Hi, Kate Wynn, 10 Cedar Hill Drive. You surprised me. I've never been able to stay till the end of one of your meetings before, so I didn't know. You just close it. I just wanted to make a very general comment. I appreciate all the discussion on the different subjects. What I've heard a little bit over the couple of meetings that I've been able to listen to is members saying that what they are trying to do is protect the town. And what I'd ask is that they just be a little bit more specific about what they're trying to protect the town from with their various viewpoints. I also would like to protect the town, but I'd like to hear, are you trying to protect the town from, an error in process, or being sued by potential applicants, or with the various viewpoints that you have for or against anything? I'd ask you to be a little bit more specific than just that you'd like to protect the town.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned. For real.
Okay.